Welcome to Montgomery Focus. I'm Audrey Parks. Today's segment will shed some light on a local organization that is making a difference in the community one letter at a time. In the studio with us today is Dr. John Harrell of the Central Alabama Lubbock Literacy Council. Good morning, Dr. Harrell.
Thank you for having me.
Good. Glad to have you this morning. Dr. Harrell, let's talk about the local numbers of literacy and illiteracy. Can you shed some light on how literacy or illiteracy is in Montgomery?
Well, Montgomery is simply a reflection of the national picture. And according to the latest national survey of adult literacy in the United States, about 43% of the adult population in the U.S. reads below the 8th grade level, and about 14% below the 2nd grade level. So if you take those numbers and apply them to the Montgomery County area, we're looking at about 60,000 people who are in need of some sort of literacy training.
When you talk about literacy training, how do you assess and and determine if a person is in need of the training that your program offers?
Well, when an individual calls us or contacts us and asks for assistance, then we schedule an appointment. We bring them into our literacy center at the City of St. Jude. And there, one of our staff or myself will do an assessment of that individual to determine where they need to start in the literacy program. The assessment takes about an hour, and we start with the most basic literacy skills. That is, do you know the alphabet? Can you say the alphabet? Can you recognize the sound that a word begins with? Can you recognize the sound that a word ends with? Can you write the alphabet in small letters? Can you write the alphabet in capital letters? And then we give them a list of simple sight words like at, the, this, with, us, and so forth. And the different levels of the assessment go up from there. And we will continue to assess the individual until they do not get at least half of the items right on a particular segment. Once that happens, then we stop the assessment, and that's basically where they will begin in the Lubbock Literacy Program.
Okay. When you talk in terms of assessment, what difficulty level does a person have to read on to be able to do some of the basic things that, you know, some of us take for granted, such as reading your medicine label bottle, reading the handling instructions of food?
Okay. Well, generally speaking, most newspapers are written at the 8th grade level. So if you have trouble reading the daily newspaper here in Montgomery, if you have trouble reading most magazines, those materials are generally speaking written at the 8th grade level. In order to pass a driver's test to get your driver's license, you need to read at about the 5th grade level. And then that's the level at which most medicine instructions on bottles, prescriptions, and things are written. So if you're an individual who is not at that level of literacy, it can pose all sorts of problems for you. And if you are in that 14% that read below the 2nd grade level, then you're basically not going to be able to fill out any part of a job application. And so it really causes lots of problems for individuals when they don't have a functional level of literacy.
So what are some of the consequences of not having a functional? You just mentioned not being able to fill out job applications, but are there other consequences that we can talk about?
Oh, absolutely. If you think about what an individual, think about people, let's say, who are in prison. Right. We have a graphic that will come up in a little bit that will show us the literacy levels related to people incarcerated in state and federal prisons. And basically speaking, the level correlates to your level of education.
Okay.
Okay. We also have a graphic that shows income levels related to level of education. And that graphic will also show that the lower your level of education, the lower your level of income. And the consequence of illiteracy is that if you can't read, then you become more dependent on the community to provide basic services for you. If you can't drive, if you can't pass the driver's test, then you must depend either on family or friends to transport you, or you must depend on public transportation. And that places great restrictions on your mobility and therefore on your quality of life. And also the people who are functionally illiterate are going to require more services from the community as far as financial assistance. They're more likely to be on welfare and to be a drain on society. Yes. So we like to use the old saying in the literacy program that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that's one of the main goals that we have behind our literacy program, and that is to make people independent in society and able to carry out a normal lifestyle.
That's awesome. And that leads right into my next question. Let's talk about CALL. What exactly is CALL?
CALL is the Central Alabama Laubach Literacy Council. We've been around since 1985. We were started by Sister Electra Armstrong at the City of St. Jude. She was a high school instructor, a nun, and she decided that there was a definite need for an adult literacy program in Montgomery, and she was the one that founded the Laubach program at the City of St. Jude. So we've been around since 1985. We were supported very generously by the City of St. Jude up until 2009, and with the dramatic decline in the economy in 2008, they were forced to suspend most of their funding for us, and for that reason we had depended on them and really never did much fundraising on our own. Now we are very much in need of public support, so we are asking the public for donations to help support our mission.
Okay. If
people would like to help support us, they can call our Literacy Center at 264-1239. They can find out more information about CALL by going to our website at www.laubachliteracyal.org. Okay. If they would like to send us a donation, they can simply make checks payable to CALL, C-A-L-L.
Okay. Dr. Harrell, let's talk about how CALL serves Montgomery and the mission, how CALL supports its mission in Montgomery.
Right. Well, currently we have between 60 and 70 active tutors in the Montgomery County area, and we serve on average about 200 students a year. Now that may sound like a lot, but if you think about the numbers I mentioned previously about the people in need of literacy services, it's just a drop in the bucket. So we are always looking to expand our services so that we can reach more people in need.
Okay, great. After this brief message, we're going to come back and talk about some of the challenges that CALL is facing here locally and how the community can be a part of helping out and helping you to meet some of those goals that you're facing.
Check this out. The Montgomery City County Public Library System has 11 convenient locations to serve you, has over 500,000 items in circulation, and adds over 20,000 items each year. Check this out. Within the Montgomery City County Public Library System, you can choose from 9 languages to learn through our interactive language programs. Cost to you? Free. You can get online with your own computer or at one of our computer workstations. Cost to you? Free. You can use your library card to check out books, CDs, and movies at one of our 11 locations. Cost to you? Free. And you can have some fun in one of our video gaming centers. Cost to you? Free. Check this out. Within the Montgomery City County Public Library System, if you don't see the title you're looking for, you can request any title available in our entire library system to be delivered to the location nearest you. Cost to you? Free. You can access our rare book collection and Ancestry.com to assist you with your research or genealogy projects. Cost to you? Free. And you can participate in a variety of programs, including Dial a Story, book clubs, and computer classes. Cost to you? Free. And check this out. At the Montgomery City County Public Library System website, you can access our online catalog to see what's available and even place a hold on that material. Cost to you? Free. And you can tap into the Alabama Virtual Library, a database that provides access to thousands of magazine, journal, and newspaper articles. Cost to you? Free. The Montgomery City County Public Library System. Check out our website at mccpl.lib.al.us or call 334-240-4300 for the location and hours of the library nearest you.
Welcome back to Montgomery Focus. I'm Audrey Parks, and in the studio with us is Dr. John Harrell. Dr. Harrell, before the break, we were talking about funding cuts and the different challenges that your organization is facing. Can we talk more about those funding cuts and how the community can help you meet some of your goals?
Sure. Prior to 2009, we were receiving approximately $50,000 a year in support from the city of St. Jude. We then received about another $20,000 to $25,000 in funds from the community that came through basically fundraising letters sent to different segments of the community, and also a few donations from some area churches. In 2009, the financial support from the city of St. Jude disappeared. So our budget went from about $75,000 to $80,000 a year to between $20,000 and $25,000. And it has significantly impacted the organization. Our executive director just recently retired, and for the last 3 years that she was there, she worked as a volunteer. She was a nun, Sister Leanne Sitter, who was our executive director for 17 years. Currently, the only staff that we have are 2 part-time people who actually do the work of full-time people. And their salaries make up the biggest chunk of our budget. Everything else we use to buy materials. Other than those 2 people, everyone in the organization is a volunteer. So as you can see, we run a bare bones operation right now, and it really does hamper our ability to expand our scope and reach more people in need in the community.
So what can members of the community of Montgomery and Montgomery County, or people in general in Alabama, what can they do to help you reach your goals and become involved in the Central Alabama LAVOC Literacy Council?
Well, obviously, we need donations from the community, but over and above that, we also need more people to become involved with us as volunteer tutors. And we conduct 6 workshops every year, generally speaking, 1 in January, 1 in March, 1 in May, 1 in June, 1 in August, and 1 in October. And these workshops consist of 2 Saturdays, 5 hours per Saturday, 2 consecutive weekends. So the workshop lasts 10 hours. At the end of the workshop, the new volunteer tutor receives a lifetime certification for the Laubach program, which means they are eligible to teach the Laubach way to reading in any program anywhere in this country.
Interesting. So in order to become a Laubach tutor, do I have to have a college education? What level of education, or if there is any, to become a tutor for your organization?
Generally speaking, people would need to have at least a high school diploma. Most of the tutors that or tutor volunteers that we get are either college graduates or have some college, but we don't have a specific educational level requirement. What we do require is that you have a passion for, number one, helping other people, helping to improve your community, and third, and perhaps most important, a love of reading and a desire to help other people achieve their literacy needs.
Okay. So as a tutor, you mentioned the tutor training sessions. I think we have a clip of a training session that actually goes through with the student on how the training works with the Laubach training. So can we talk about that?
Sure.
Word begins with the sound B. Say B. B. Again. B. Again. B. Again. B.
Then he teaches Charles the name of the letter.
Sound for this letter is B. The name of this letter is B.
That kind of goes over what happens in the tutoring session. Is there anything you'd like to add to the difficulty of becoming a tutor? Or?
Well, what you just saw was a demonstration of the Laubach way to reading that was taken from our very first skill book. Now, this is the book that we would use if somebody comes in who knows absolutely nothing from a literacy standpoint. That is, they are totally illiterate. So we can take them from ground zero up to the 8th grade level.
Good deal. We mentioned earlier about people coming in and you assessing them and they have certain goals that they want to meet. After you assess a person and they tell you what their goals are, is there a set amount of time that it takes for a person to reach their goals, or is there a certain amount of commitment time that you have for your tutors as well?
Generally speaking, we like to ask our tutors and the students to be willing to make a commitment for at least a year. Now, some students can come in, and if they're starting, let's say, at the first skill level, they may be able to go through that book fairly rapidly. But generally speaking, the materials are laid out in grade level order. So by the time you go from our first skill book up through skill books 2, 3, and 4, you're reading at about the 5th grade level. And both skill book 3 and 4 are going to require approximately a year to go through. Skill book 1, it's assumed that you can get through that in about 6 to 8 months, and probably about the same for skill book 2. Then after you get up to the 5th grade level, then we switch to what is called the Challenger Series. And the Challenger Series then takes students from the 5th grade level up to the between the 8th and 9th grade level.
Okay. So how long does a tutor, just say in a week's time, what's the commitment level to be a tutor?
Sure. Normally we like our tutors and students to meet twice a week for about 3 hours. That is about an hour and a half per session, and we like them to have a break between each session, and that gives the student a time to sort of reflect and absorb what they've covered in the previous lesson.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Once again, if I'd like to become a tutor, what's the next step from here?
Well, you need to contact the Laubach Literacy Center. Again, we are housed at the City of St. Jude. They can call us at 264-1239, or they can go to our website and fill out a registration form there that website again is www.laubachliteracyal.org. The workshops are free, and the materials that we provide cost between $10 and $15. So that's why we're asking the community for their support, because it does cost money to provide these services.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about some of your stories, your success stories, some goals that you've had students to meet, and some exciting things that you've done for the community.
Well, I worked with a young man for about 5 years. When I first started working with him, he was reading at about the second grade level, and he was having great difficulty. His goal was to get a driver's license. We worked for about 2 years on just the basic Laubach way to reading method. Then in the 3rd year, we put the Laubach materials aside and worked with the driver's manual. Now, we still use the Laubach techniques, but instead of using the Laubach books, we used the driver's manual. We worked for about 1.5 years on that, and at the end of that time, he took the driver's test, passed it on his first attempt. The first person he called was his mother. The second person he called was me.
Wow.
And he was just ecstatic. And it really did change his life, because his mother had to take him to and from work. She had to take him to and from his literacy sessions. He got his driver's license. Within about 3 to 4 months, he had purchased a car.
Wow.
He became independent. That, in turn, improved his position on his job, because he was able to take on more hours, which gave him greater income, and it led to greater responsibilities as his reading level improved, and ultimately it led to him being able to move out and live on his own. So just getting him up to the 6th grade reading level just made a dramatic improvement in his quality of life.
Great, great. Now, we talked about somebody wanting to get their driver's license. Are there other reasons that you can disclose to us that people have come in to want to be trained with your system? What are some other reasons they've come in?
Well, people come to us for assistance for all types of reasons. Many people may assume that everyone wants to get a GED or go to college. Many of the people we serve are older individuals. They may simply want to be able to read well enough to read books to their grandchildren. They may want to be able to read well enough to read the Bible, to participate in a Sunday school class. They'd like to be able to read a menu when they go out to eat. They'd like to be able to read a map. They'd like, as we mentioned before, but they'd like to be able to read the instructions on the labels of their prescriptions. They'd like to be able to read a newspaper. They'd like to be able to read a magazine, to read street signs. So, again, our goal is to help people achieve their goals. We do not try to impose our own goals on them. We're there strictly to help them achieve the level of literacy that they want to become a more functionally independent person.
That's awesome. Very briefly, can we talk about the history of the Laubach learning, literacy learning? I know that your motto is each one, teach one. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Our program was developed by Dr. Frank C. Laubach, who was a Congregationalist missionary. And he and his family were sent to the Philippine island of Mindanao back in the late 1920s. And there they worked teaching the natives to read and write. And in fact, Dr. Laubach developed an alphabet for the tribes people on the island of Mindanao. So they had no written language before he came. He developed an alphabet for them and then used that to teach them to read and write their own language. Then, when the stock market crash came in 1929, his missionary program lost funding, and they were going to be called back to the States. The chief called the tribes people together and said, Dr. Laubach taught me to read, his wife taught my wife to read, and we have taught other people. And the chief then drew out his knife, and so he said, let everyone here learn to read and then teach someone else to read or die.
Wow.
And as far as we know, no one died at the meeting.
Wow.
So the method was developed back in the 1930s. In 1955, the first Laubach Way to Reading program was developed here in the U.S., and their printed materials appeared for the first time. We're using the same materials, essentially, that were developed in the 1950s. So the methods are tried and true. And it was from his work in the Philippines that Dr. Laubach developed the logo for the Laubach Way to Reading, and that is each one, teach one.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Harrell, thank you for your work that you're doing in the community and your organization. We look forward to people calling in to get you more help. So if people want more information about the Central Alabama Laubach Literacy Council, what would they need to do?
Okay. Two main ways that you can contact us. One is you can call our number at 264-1239. That's the Laubach Literacy Center. You can go to our website at www.laubachliteracyal.org. And if people would like to send a donation, they can simply make a check payable to CALL, C-A-L-L, and they can mail it to the Central Alabama Laubach Literacy Council, 2048 West Fairview Avenue, Montgomery, Alabama, 36108.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Montgomery Focus. I'm Audrey Parks. Have a great day.